What is up? What is up? What is up, everybody? How is everybody doing tonight? It is Friday. It is the day before college football. It's the day before the Minnesota game. So Nebraska fans have that to look forward to. Believe the game is at noon tomorrow against the Gophers. Good team with PJ Fleck there at the University of Minnesota. So this year, we now look at a very interesting predicament in Nebraska, and I want to get everybody's opinions in the comment section below, or if you're watching this video, and it has to do with Mickey Joseph, and it has to do with how he's transpiring at the university, or how he's doing at the University of Nebraska. So Mickey Joseph, last game, they lose to Illinois 29-6. And every time you see Mickey Joseph, you again get a better idea, or you get new insight into Mickey Joseph, the coach, because other than the recruiting trail, other than pressers, you do see coaches there. That is the on-the-field work that you're seeing with Mickey Joseph. Now, the thing is with Mickey is that he is not picking. Mickey Joseph is not pick. He did not pick Mark Whipple. Luckily, he had a prior relationship with Bill Bush, but Mark Whipple, his health hasn't been that good, and he's an older coach, and he's been around. He's been around a long, long time. So is Mark Whipple going to be the offensive coordinator for Mickey Joseph? I mean, these are things that, you need to consider and weigh, when you're looking at Mickey Joseph here. All right. So Chris Kleiman is really the guy that I believe that Mickey and Nebraska fans are going to now be up against, because Chris Kleiman's ball club at Kansas State, it mirrors Nebraska. I would say that Lincoln is maybe a little bit more lively, or it probably has more people than Manhattan, Kansas by a little bit. I haven't been to both places, but I think that Kansas State is a program that's a former Big 12 program that is based in the middle of the country as well. It's not, I'd say that Kansas is much closer to Kansas City metropolitan area. So I would say that they are comparable. Kansas State has had better basketball, with Bob Huggins and Frank Martin, and Bruce Weber did okay, but I've never been a huge fan of his. And then you look at Nebraska, and meanwhile, Nebraska and Kansas State, you could drive to Manhattan, the Little Apple, to watch a game, or they would come in to Lincoln. So Trev Alberts, being a former defensive tackle, he's very involved, and he's very interested in, I believe, running the football and playing solid defense. And this year, Chris Kleiman's club, Kansas State, they just beat the dog crap out of Oklahoma State 48-0. The largest sum of victory against a top 10 team, I believe, in maybe 20, maybe 40 years. 48-0 was last week's game. So I'm going to look up Chris Kleiman again, because Kleiman, here's the thing about Kleiman. He fired his older offensive coordinator because he was there with Skylar Thompson, and Skylar Thompson was getting hurt a lot. Then they've tried to throw in Will Howard. They now have Adrian Martinez, and, all of Nebraska and probably everybody in college football was able to see that game against Oklahoma, and that's when Oklahoma was undefeated. And Kansas State was rested. They went in there and won. And then Kansas State, off of a bye, almost went to TCU with Martinez getting injured, and they were beating TCU for the majority of that first half, and TCU again came back and beat them, but it was very close. The Big 12 is good, and Kleiman fired an old offensive coordinator to reinstate a young, up-and-coming riser. One of the great quarterbacks, if you're around my age, which is 30, you'll remember Colin Klein. Kid is an absolute beast. He's a runner. He's tough as nails. He's a Midwest version of, he played a little bit like Tebow in that he was just such a strong, tough runner, like Jordan Lynch of Northern Illinois, like Tim Tebow. Could throw it a bit, but he was just such a dynamic runner and athlete. He's exactly like Eric Crouch. Eric Crouch won the Heisman Trophy, but Colin Klein was a stud, and Colin Klein was in New York, and now Colin Klein, who's probably around 33 years old, is running the show in Kansas State, and he's doing a sensational job, not only with Martinez, but now Will Howard had a coming out party after he's been much maligned past couple of years. And honestly, three-star quarterback out of Downingtown, and he had a huge game. So Kleiman, overall, this is his bio. He's a Northern Iowa guy. He's a Panther, okay? So Waterloo, Iowa, I believe, is right near Cedar Falls. It's probably 5 minutes from Cedar Falls. All right? So, again, and, Northern Iowa basketball for Rokmanesh, Ben Jacobson. Can go on and on. Could talk 30 minutes because they're like my favorite college basketball team. I could list a Helaba and Eggles. I can list everybody of Northern Iowa. I love the 2010 Northern Iowa basketball team, but he was there for a long time, and ironically, Frost was there too. Frost was at Northern Iowa as a linebackers coach too after a stint with New England. I bet they even overlapped because from 2006 to 2011, he was in a variety of capacities at Northern Iowa. Okay, back to being a defensive backs coach, went to Kansas State, Missouri State in Springfield. Petrino's now there. All right, and Northern Iowa from 2006 to 2010. Then he went to North Dakota State in Fargo, okay, which is a similar Midwestern kind of, mountain time zone place. Fargo is the king for football. The FCS Kings, of course, Trey Lance, Carson Wentz, probably have won, in the last 10 years, I'd say they've won 8 or 9 of those championships. Maybe Sam Houston's won like one of them. All right, so North Dakota State, he's there 2011 to 2013. He's the D coordinator. And then for 4 years, Kleiman is there. His head coaching record there is 36-4. Won the championship 4 out of 5 times. So he's a stud. Now, you can easily argue, right, that, hey, he's just taking over for Craig Bohl. That's the Alabama of FCS football. He still crushed it, kind of like Lance Leipold did at a Division III level. Incredible accomplishment. And it's pressure to take over for Craig Bohl, who was legendary there. And then he was there, through the Wentz era as well, seeing a quarterback go number 2 in the draft. And a lot of guys, probably still play in the NFL from North Dakota State. So stud at North Dakota State, stable, great coach. Kansas State, 8-5, lost the Liberty Bowl first year, had a dip in the COVID year 2020, 4-6. Then he goes 8-5, wins the Texas Bowl over LSU, where LSU was kind of in the middle of a coaching change and so many guys were out. None of their problem. They rolled, and now they're 6-2, and now they're ranked probably 15th in the. I can look it up, but now with Colin Klein, their running game is sensational. It's number 13th in the country of Adrian Martinez and Deuce Vaughn, and they're utilizing Deuce Vaughn. Their defense is tough and stingy. That's the thing about Kansas State defenses is that they don't allow a lot on the ground. They play tough physical ball on, against the run. I can even go ahead right now and look up the team rankings for Kansas State when we look at them against the run, because they play in a high-powered offense. You have to go against Jeff Lebby. You have to go against Oklahoma State. The Big 12 is better pound for pound than the Big 10 is this year. It's just the way it is. So, here's the team rankings. Their rushing defense. Opponent rushing yards a game. Gonna look it up. Kansas State. All right, they're 46, so they're still in the 50s. I would say that last year they might have even been better. You watch Kansas State football. Before Colin Klein, their offense was not very good. Now, with Colin Klein, Martinez, and Vaughn, they're great. They're achieving the best of the best. Before this, you'd say Kleiman, he's a fine coach, but he's boring. And the offense is boring, but guess what? This year, they're balling, all right? And it ain't boring winning by 50 against Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State. Yeah, I know that they played Texas the week before, and they were lagging going to Manhattan for the slaughter. But guess what's tomorrow? Texas is tomorrow. And guess what? Kansas State beats Texas. I know that people want to live in this world of it doesn't matter what you do for me on a game-to-game basis. You should already kind of have your profile. You shouldn't be swayed by each game. I'll tell you, if Kansas State beats Texas in Sarkeesian 40-22, and, without Casey Thompson, unfortunately for Mickey Joseph, you have Brock Purdy, who is rusty, does not really throw the ball with a ton of velocity. All right, he just didn't look very good. You have Logan Smothers that as a passer as well hasn't been dynamic in his time in there. Now, is that fair? They've only played 2 or 3 games, but you're playing a decent Minnesota team tomorrow, and you're favored to lose big time. Even with Casey Thompson, it's a tall task. So for Mickey Joseph, it's tough because you're analyzing Mickey Joseph. You're saying, hey, we're analyzing you as a NASCAR driver, but your car, you can't even pick your car. You can't pick the team of people around you to gas up the car in NASCAR. It's like any analogy. Hey, go play tennis or golf. Go play a round of golf. But we're going to get you clubs. You're 6'3", we're going to get you clubs of a 5'9" individual. And you got to play golf and play it at a high level. So the one thing for Mickey Joseph, again, that we talked about on the show is the team looked very good beating Rutgers and beating Indiana. You could scoff at that all you want. They played Purdue, which is one of the better teams in the West, a very good offensive team. Trey Palmer had about 300 yards. So the development of Trey Palmer into a star in college football is impressive for Mickey Joseph, who recruited Trey Palmer, and that position's been the best group on the team. So I'd argue that was impressive. Now, Casey gets hurt, and they fall apart, and they don't play. Even Mickey would tell you that second half was ugly. Anybody who watched that would tell you that against Illinois was ugly. Now, Illinois is ranked really high, and you know what? Tommy DeVito doesn't throw it around the yard, and they play close games. So for some reason, I look at Illinois, and I'm like, hey, they haven't played anybody of incredible substance. I know that they're winning. I know that they beat Minnesota even at home. And they're having a very good year, but I don't look at them as like, oh my God, Illinois. But Illinois has the trenches working. Brett Bielema has that thing in Champaign. Give him a lot of credit. But I thought it was a game Nebraska could stay in, and heck, it was 9-6. Ramir Johnson drops the wheel route, and the thing falls apart. And of course, Casey gets injured, and the offense is anemic. All right, in the second half, and the pass protection. Mark Whipple's trying to throw the ball over the yard with guys with Donnie Raiola, and the offensive line can't really block. So for Mickey Joseph, unfortunately, he's going up against a guy in Kleiman that, has 5 years of experience at North Dakota State where he's won FCS championships and done great. So for Mickey, it's tough. For Kleiman, he has a good argument, and he's trending in the right direction. He has his team in year 4. He has all the players. He has a really good offensive coordinator. He has 2 very good quarterbacks that are there now because Will Howard has shown he's very capable at this point of being a solid option. Will Howard's playing the best ball. You could say, I don't know if he's a great quarterback because he was, first couple of years he was okay. But he's, a quarterback that's on fire right now, that's feeling it, a hot quarterback. And so that's the thing with Kansas State. I would say that right now, Kleiman too, believe I saw somewhere he's making $2 million a year. Where Lance Leipold, they have a huge football facility opening up in Kansas. And Lance Leipold, that offense is more, it's less running the ball, more on the passing game, more on Jalen Daniels, more on speed on the outside. I believe that Trev Alberts wants to play really physical, which is what Kleiman wants to do. Trenches, run it down your throat. That's North Dakota State football. I know that they play in a dome, but they play physical brand of football at North Dakota State. That's Alabama. They'll smother opponents with defense. And Kleiman is a defensive guy. Dave Aranda, defensive guy as well, impressive, but Baylor, very faith-based organization. So is Nebraska to a degree. I mean, Baylor is a Christian school, all right, a private, like, Christian school. And Nebraska is a public school. And Dave Aranda, you listen to Aranda talk, and I really like Aranda, but he's not for everybody because Aranda is incredibly introspective. Just listen to Aranda talk. He'll talk about every little thing that goes on. We got off the bus. The locker room temperature was 69 degrees in there. Our equipment guys got in there, and mentally, we needed to focus on our cohesion of how we were relating our bodies to how we were running the ball. He is like a psychologist. He's very introspective, I guess is the word I can again say about Dave Aranda. I love that style, but trust me, a lot of people, some football players even, they don't love the style because they're more black and white, like kind of thinkers, or they're just like, ah, man, this guy's annoying me with these 30-minute press conferences. And Dave Aranda is smart enough. He knows this. He's like, listen, that's why Baylor's so much fun is I can be myself at all times. So Nebraska is a real fishbowl. I don't know if that whole thing, I don't know if that's going to be the connection. You have to look, where is the connection? Where is it going to work? All right, so personality-wise, Aranda, Jeff Grimes, great running the ball, so he has the physicality. He's very in play. Aranda still is in play. It's if Trev Alberts loves Aranda, and if Aranda wants to leave Baylor, I think he loves Baylor. I think he loves the offensive coordinator, loves being in the state of Texas. It's a faith-based university. He's a Cal Lutheran guy. I don't see Aranda leaving. So that leaves us with Kleiman. And I'd say that Kleiman is in the driver's seat for the job because Kleiman, again, he's based, he probably grew up liking Nebraska, being in Iowa, which is only like a 4-hour drive, I'd predict, from Cedar Falls to Lincoln, Nebraska. And, you know, Matt Campbell this year was another Iowa guy who was at Iowa State for a while and overachieves. But Kleiman is just he's just a defensive guy. You know, and I just think that Trev Alberts loves the defensive structure. He loves having a coach with, 10 years of coaching experience, of being a head coach and being at a place like Kansas State. And for Mickey, unfortunately, was a wide receiver coach for a while, now getting his chance. There's just not enough sample size, I believe, for Mickey to fend off, I believe, the incoming surge of Kleiman. And I like Mickey, so it's emotional that one person has to get the job because I really like Mickey Joseph. The whole speech, the SI article. Again, I heard this on the Nick Bob podcast. I'll give him a shout out because he's great. He's my favorite to follow for Creighton and Nebraska talk. He and Bo were talking about, Mickey. And Mickey Joseph said, in a meeting, so Ross Dellinger wrote this for SI, he said, we're not effing Ohio State, but we're going to be getting on Ohio State's level. We're not competing against Minnesota, Purdue. We're going to kick their bleep in recruiting. So Mickey's just a guy who's very ambitious mind, very ambitious the way he thinks, has swag, can really get in the guys, talk to guys, got the guys to buy in a very difficult situation, has done a terrific job, has made this decision difficult. It's rare that an interim makes the decision difficult. That's a credit to Mickey Joseph. Kleiman is red hot right now, the hot name in college football, and after Texas, he's going to be the hot name. I believe, too, that with his with all the experience being the head coach, he also is overwhelmingly going to be a favorite. And now with the uncertainty at the starting quarterback spot, with P.J. Fleck and a veteran regime coming in there, and a well-oiled machine, and Mo Ibrahim, and a team that's hungry in Minnesota to still finish the year out really strong, it could be a real blowout tomorrow. And it could be really tough. Could be very tough. So I was looking just right now. I was looking at, I guess, Kleiman. Aranda has a terrific record at the University of Baylor, so he's also going to be considered. Oh yeah, I'm looking at Kleiman and his salary. All right. So the salary, $3.5 million. Nebraska, for a coach, they're paying Frost out a lot. They can probably more than double that salary. Get to about $9 million a year. But again, does Kleiman want to leave Manhattan? He's happy there. The team is rolling. It's more pressure at Nebraska. So here's the thing, too. I believe if it's not Kleiman, Lance Leipold just lost to Oklahoma, lost to TCU. He has a good offense. He has a good resume as well. I think that he's entrenched in the Kansas. I don't think he's leaving Kansas. Really depends on the market. Aranda's a different style guy. So, again, you're dealing with risk, too. Just a personality. Like, he's a great guy, but is he going to be just too psychological that he's going to be hard to, really get an insight into what he's thinking all the time? I think Aranda is incredibly smart, though. He's an incredibly kind person. So, it's not a huge negative. It's just, if you listen to Aranda, like I guess all of us can, that's kind of how I would assess it. I think Kleiman just checks a lot of boxes with the head coaching experience, being Northern Iowa, just so close to the state of Iowa or Nebraska, the way that they run the football, the way that Trev Alberts probably reveres North Dakota State football and the Bison. And, actually, you look at Trev Alberts' history, and you need to really look at the decision maker. And Trev Alberts was at Nebraska Omaha. And I believe Nebraska Omaha also joined the Missouri Valley for all their sports. And in the Missouri Valley, he overlapped with North Dakota State, especially in the sports like wrestling, where North Dakota State's awesome at wrestling. At least I would certainly assume Brock Lesnar or whatever, North Dakota State. And that is Nebraska Omaha. That is Missouri Valley sports. And that is also North Dakota State. Kleiman will get paid more at Nebraska. He's in the Big Ten. The Big 12 is going through a transition period where they're even talking. They have a new commissioner. Texas and Oklahoma are leaving, and they are talking to they're talking to Gonzaga, a non-football school, Brett Yormark. So what is Yormark going to do? Is he going to go into Arizona now? Where's Kansas State going to be playing their football? Nebraska, part of the Big Ten, their TV deals, everything is more secure. Trev Alberts, I believe, is a very good AD, just trustworthy, on top of things, unlike Bill Moose, decent AD, but again, you heard reports that he wasn't there all the time. He was more on his ranch. So that's what's going to be interesting. Right now, I think Kleiman is surging. What do you guys think about this? Mickey, too, has the allure. If Kleiman and Lance are on the fence, I don't see Leipold or Campbell being in the mix that much. If Kleiman wants to stay at Kansas State, I think I'd be comfortable with Mickey. I really would be. I think that these are all guys that could really work out. I think that outside of Aranda, Leipold, or Kleiman, fine, I'll throw Campbell in there. I think it's down the 5. But I would say Mickey is right in the top 3 right now. And if Mickey's hired, it's also going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be exciting. I also think Mickey would do a prove-it deal of a 2-year deal. Because, again, he hasn't been a head coach for that long. You'd want to prove it. I think he would do a 3-year prove-it deal. So again, if you're Alberts, you could, and none of the other guys want to leave their schools, then just I would make it official with Mickey, like many have pointed out, because Michigan's coming up, the quarterback's kind of hurt. You got to get some momentum in recruiting for November. But again, I think that Alberts he's kind of have the intel. He's been working on this. He's going to gauge the other programs' interest. So how would I think Kleiman do at Nebraska? I think if he brought Klein with him and the offense continues to be, running quarterback and very physical, but with, modern day wrinkles of not just running it in the middle, but running more zone run concepts on offense, especially if you take Klein with you, Colin Klein, I think Nebraska can take off. I think Nebraska can be awesome under Chris Kleiman. I like Kleiman more than I like Matt Campbell. Kleiman's also safer than Lance Leipold, who's mostly D3 in Buffalo. Leipold's still a little bit unproven. Kleiman, for a Power 5, is proven. I believe his personality is even going to get along with Trev Alberts, even better than a Dave Aranda. Dave Aranda is very good, but Dave Aranda at Baylor just seems like a perfect fit. So a lot of moving parts. We'll learn more tomorrow as well. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what y'all think.